First of all, thanks Harshita, thanks for joining. And so just to introduce Harshita to our cohort, so she is a co-founder of Cogno AI. So she and Aman have basically started this company uh, back in 2018, or 2017 or 2018. Then it got acquired by Exeter. Now Harshita is serving as a director, product management director at Exeter, and she has a background in BTech from IIT Kanpur. She is an alumni of IIT Kanpur. So basically, for today's session, she'll be explaining more about the importance of team building for at an early stage startups, how they have built their own team, and then how the journey went to the successful startup. Uh, we'll have the session first for around 30-35 minutes, then we can go ahead for the question and answer. But meanwhile, if you want to ask something, you can drop your question in the chat box, so we can take it at the end. Okay, with this I'll hand it over to Harshita. Harshita, over to you.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Aditya. Okay, so I'll now present my screen. I've prepared some slides. I cannot present the screen. It's saying host disabled participants.
One second. Yeah. Can you check now?
Just a second. There's some problem. Just a second. Okay, I'll just try again. Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, so in this session, I'll be talking mainly about team building, why it is important and how can you do that, right? So firstly, I'll talk about like why should you even listen to me? Okay, so so first thing, so I'll be just talking about some ratings and badges that we have got recently. So like on Glassdoor, our team is rated like 4.5 stars. On Google, it is 4.3. And in 2021, we also got LinkedIn top startups India badge. So like it talks quite a lot about like how the team is, like what the team members feel about the company, right? So that's why I just made this slide, that why should you even listen to me for this. And yeah, so I'll talk about our journey. Okay, so Cogno AI started in 2017 April. So the company was incorporated. At that time, there were 2 co-founders, and it was like operating from a 2 BHK flat. And in August 2018, one of the previous co-founder left, right? So Aman was there and I joined as another co-founder. And at that time, we were just 4 people in the team. Aman was there, I was there, and there were 2 interns. Okay. And one of these interns actually grew up to become our engineering head. So yeah, so at that time, it was just 4 people. We were still working from a 2 BHK flat. Okay. And like before I joined, so how it was like, there was no product. Okay. So mostly we had been making chatbots for different customers. So SBI was our first customer, right? Then there was SBI Life. Look, these 2 were the chatbots which were deployed like before I joined. And when I joined, we started like making chatbots for ICICI Bank and SBI mutual funds and all. So at that time, we did not have a chatbot product. It was more like a services kind of thing that, okay, there is an order, we have to make it. It was services based model at that time. So when I joined in 2018 August, okay, so Aman and I, we had a clear segregation of roles and responsibilities. Aman was like, he was actually interacting more with the customers, right? Because I had joined new, he was having some existing relationships with the customers. So he started focusing on sales and like customer facing aspects. And I was mostly focused on product and technology. Okay. So in around November 2018, we shifted to our 8-seater office. And that is the time when we started working on making a product. Okay, how can we productize the chatbot thing? So that is in November 2018, we started. I was overlooking that. Okay. And then in May 2019, we shifted to a 20-seater office. And like, of course, we had hired a lot of interns by that time. So that was there. And in March 2020, like by March 2020, like till COVID had struck. So we were a team of around 20 people, including full-times and interns. Okay. And then we rapidly increased the team size during the COVID times, right? Because in COVID, the solutions that we were making, right, they became all the like more relevant for the industry, right? Because face-to-face interactions were not happening. Okay, so a lot of interactions were being automated. So we had been making chatbots, which become even more useful, right? Because you have to automate a lot of digital conversations, right? Then we have a live chat product. It was also like because agents and like people were not coming to the branches of the banks or the insurance companies and all, right? So a lot of digital interaction was happening. So live chat also became very important. Then we also had made a co-browsing product, which was a secured screen sharing. So typically क्या होता है कि insurance agents come to the homes of the customers, right, to fill the form, take signatures and all. But in COVID, that was not possible, right? And insurance was like selling like crazy because it was COVID, right? So like we have a like solution called co-browsing, which is actually used for filling digital forms online in a secured manner. So that also became like very popular. So we had to rapidly increase our team size, right? So that is when like we hired a lot. And by November 2021, this is when the acquisition actually happened. At that time, we were around 100 people. Okay. And September 2022, currently we are around 150 people in the Cogno AI subsidiary. So we are running as an independent subsidiary right now. So while the combined org has like more than 1,000 people, but in the Cogno subsidiary, we have around 150 people right now. So this has been our journey. So now I'll start talking about team building, hiring, and a lot more things. So this slide is mainly about like how do you hire depending on the company's phase. Okay, so company has different phases, right? First is the 0 to 1 phase. 0 to 1 phase mein kya hai? Like the product market fit is being established right now. Revenue is typically less than $1 million. Right, so this is one phase. Then like in this phase, what happens is you have to actually hire a lot of generalists, right? Because right now you don't have any processes. You don't even know that what you are thinking as an idea to develop right now, like will it actually be like useful for the customers, or do you have to pivot, right? So there's a lot of uncertainty, right? So you need people right now who can actually just do anything to get the ball rolling, right? Like you give any work to them, like these people, they can actually handle product, customer success, they can like do anything, they can do project delivery, whatever is given to them on plate, right? These are not specialists, these are generalists. Okay. And these people, they may or may not have a lot of experience, right? Because what happens is that in the beginning of the career, right, any person can do like by and large anything because they have touched the surface of things, right? But as a number of years of experience increases, people tend to become specialized in one thing, right? So because in this phase we are typically hiring generalists, so they may not be like very experienced. That is okay. And in fact, for that matter, we had hired a lot of freshers during this phase. When we were actually establishing product market fit, we had just like hired people directly from campuses and all. So this is what we typically did. Then comes the scale up phase. Scale up phase is like your product market fit is established, and now your revenue is typically somewhere between $1 million to $10 million. Okay. This is the time when you actually hire specialists now. Okay, because you need like deep domain knowledge, right? You need people who have experience of managing teams, right? Hiring, firing, a lot more things. So now you hire specialists in this phase. Then MBA grads hiring is typically useful in the scale up phase more as compared to 0 to 1 phase. Why? Because in MBA, people are like taught about making processes, scaling up processes, right? So which is very much required in the scale up phase typically, right? So you can go about hiring MBA grads in the scale up phase. And and as I mentioned, the average number of years of experience of the team increases naturally, right? There are more stages like that of the companies that come later, but like, I mean, it will take a lot of time, so we'll probably talk about that later. But right now I'm focusing on these two phases, 0 to 1 and scale up. Okay, so before I move further, I hope my pace of speaking and all is fine, right? Or am I going too fast, too slow? Cool. Okay, cool. So next is choosing a co-founder, right? So actually, Aditya also shared with me a list of questions that were there. So I just tried to pick up as much as possible in the slides, and then later on I'll answer more questions. So one of the questions was about how to go about choosing a co-founder, right? So, okay, so basically one thumb rule is that co-founders should have complementary operational skills and approach of doing things. Okay, that is very important. दो लोग एक जैसे होंगे तो there will be conflicts and people will not be able to kind of complement each other's strengths and weaknesses, right? Team का purpose ही यही है that you are able to be like more strong together, right? So complementary operational skills and approach is very important. Say if you are a product person type of person who has a like very high attention to detail, likes creating new stuff, right? And so you may want to get a person on board who might be like good at sales, marketing, right? Who is a good conversationalist. Okay, so complementary skill sets, right? Skill set complementary hai, that is there, but the underlying work habits should be very similar. Okay, so focus, perseverance, right? है ना? So उसमें differences नहीं होने चाहिए, because what happens is, for example, if there are two co-founders, one of the co-founder is like a big hustler, right? They are like workaholic crazy. The other person is not, right? Then there will be conflicts. कि तुम कर रहे हो नहीं कर रहे हो and all those things, right? So underlying work habits should be similar, but operational skills should be different so that there is a complementary aspect in the team. Then next comes, co-founders should be ready to segregate the work among themselves and trust each other to do the best in their respective domains. This is very important because it avoids the conflicts between the co-founders, right? So at Cogno also, as I mentioned earlier, like when I joined, the first thing we did was work separation. Okay, Aman is handling customer facing things. I'm handling the internal things, product, engineering, HR also I handle because it is internal facing. Of course, among the co-founders, you can discuss a lot of things, but there should be enough trust that, okay, even if there's a disagreement, the person in whose scope this work is lying, right? They take the final decision. Okay, so that kind of trust should be there. And yeah, so this is important. Then comes that the co-founder should ideally know each other since several years. Okay. And if they have a history of working together, that is even like more preferred, right? Because like co-founders, basically choosing a co-founder is like choosing a marriage partner essentially. Okay. So if you know the other person since long time, if you have worked together, if you have seen like the good times, bad times somehow together, so that always helps, right? So in our case also, so Aman and I, we had been working on a small business while in college itself. So we had run a small content writing business in college where we had a lot of freelancers. And in college, like third year, fourth year, we were around making around 50-60 lakhs a year. I mean, that was quite cool at that time when we were in college. So we had a history of working together. So when we started off for Cogno together, so it was a no-brainer for us because we knew each other's strengths and weaknesses, who is good at what. I mean, at some scale, we of course knew it. It was a small business in college, but at least एक idea lag jata hai that will you be able to work together or not. Then comes complementary temperament. So that is very important. If one is introvert, the other person should be extrovert. One is short-tempered, the other person should be cool-minded. Because ultimately, I mean, the entire purpose of having a co-founder and a team is that you both are able to go together far and overcome each other's weaknesses or like problems basically, right? So complementary temperament always helps. So I am like very introvertish, Aman is very extrovertish. So that is like one example. So temperament is very important. So coincidentally, for choosing a co-founder, I had also made a video which is there on YouTube. So I have put a link in this slide. So after this session, I'll share the slides with Aditya also. So you can go through it. I've talked more in detail about this point. Next comes early hires and founding team. So basically, I'll be talking about like how do you hire your initial employees? Okay. So in this case, what is most important is hire more for attitude than skills. Okay. I mean, of course, the person should be good at skills. That's fine. But if you have a choice, like there are two people, okay, and both meet your bars of skill set, right? And there is one person who's probably more skilled, but doesn't have that attitude that you are looking for. you should rather go with the other person who just meets your bar, but is like having a good attitude and can learn later, right? Because skills can still be taught, but attitude cannot be taught. I mean, and if there's a person who has attitude of giving up when something hard comes on the way, or they don't have enough learnability, they are not willing to explore new things, and they're not curious enough, so that is something that you cannot teach, right? So if you can get somebody who has all these things plus the skill set meets your bar, you should go ahead with that person. And then next point is past history of working in a startup is preferred over working in an MNC. So this is purely because what happens is like as the company becomes bigger, right? The work culture drastically changes. So MNC is a very big company, startup is like just starting up, right? Like there is such a large difference in working. So if you happen to hire, say, somebody from MNC, there might be some people who will be able to adapt fast, but there might be some people who will not be able to adapt fast, right? So if you have a choice that you can bring in some person from a startup background, and so that is like more preferred. Fresher la rahe ho, to fir they are a bare slate, right? So they learn whatever they see, right? But if you're bringing experienced person, startup person, you can prefer more. Then next comes these folks should be very reliable, right? So you should be confident that if they're assigned a task, so they'll get it done without much follow-ups. So this sense of ownership, this is very important, especially in the early hires, right? Because I mean, when the team is just building up, when the startup is just starting, right? So I mean, you don't want to have people who are like not feeling the ownership of the thing, right? Because if ownership aati hai, then you give your 120% in things, right? So typically what you'll notice is that when you hire the very initial people, right? So काफी सारे लोग ना apply ही नहीं करेंगे, है ना? Because they are like, they don't want to work in such an unstable environment and all. तो ऐसे केस में क्या होता है, जो लोग apply करेंगे in your company, right? Or rather who agree to work with you even if you reach out to them outbound, right? So these people will be like understanding already that yes, the environment will be turbulent, काफी सारी चीजें करनी होंगी, है ना? So एक expectation setting naturally होती है लोगों के मन में, right? But still, है ना, just to be sure, ठीक है, there should be some expectation setting done, and you have to make sure that the people that you're hiring, they have a sense of ownership. They should feel कि यार मेरी company है, ठीक है? So that is very important. And next comes that you might have to coach them a lot in the beginning, especially if you're hiring freshers, right? Or less experienced folks. This is very important because what happens is that as a founder, okay, you can still see a lot of things ki, okay, like why are you pursuing this idea? Where is the market going, right? So aapke paas first hand information hogi, right? And then comes your team members, right? So you'll have to keep on coaching them with things, right? That what you are seeing, why you should do that. That is one aspect of it. Second is because if they are like not very experienced and if they are freshers, so they might also need coaching on a lot of different things. For example, hiring, firing, how do they manage the team under them, right? Things like that. So books वगैरह पढ़ के of course they'll learn, but also a lot of coaching is required from the founders themselves, right? Because founders are the ones who drive the DNA of the company, right? So like in the next slide, I also talk about culture and all. So basically it all links. So as a founder, आप जैसे चाहते हो, जैसे आप envision कर रहे हो company को, right? So you have to impart that knowledge to your team members, right? So that is where coaching comes a lot, right? Coaching for general skills and coaching for your startup specific skills that the people should know. Then comes hire slow, fire fast. This is very important. Okay, so hire slow में तो ठीक है, समझ में आता है कि okay, you interview people, you see a lot of candidates, and once you are sure, once you get the gut feeling कि हाँ, this is the person, then you hire. That is there, ठीक है. So that might take some time. That is okay, है ना? Till you don't get the hunch कि yeah, this is the person who is the most suitable for this particular role in my company, don't hire, है ना? Because what happens is कि अगर the person is not that appropriate, right, in the role that you're looking for, and if you hire them, especially in the early days, ठीक है, जो negative compounding होगी ना बहुत ज्यादा हो जाएगी. Because what happens is कि there's a lot of work to do, right? And if you're not getting that hunch, if the person is not able to come up, the time lost, right, in the beginning, that is like very valuable. You could have iterated a lot, right? You could have done a lot more things which the person could not keep up with, right? So hire only when you get the gut feeling ki yes, this is the person that I have to hire. Then next comes fire fast. This is even more important because इसमें एक thumb rule होता है, I read it in a book, so it says कि the moment you get that hunch, right, कि this person should not be in the company, you should actually part ways. Okay, that is good for you, for the company, for the person themselves, like for everybody this is good, right? Because see, ultimately like हर इंसान एक सही जगह पे मतलब at the appropriate environment, at the appropriate in like wherever they're interested and all, they'll do good, right? That may not match with your company, right? Nothing wrong with that. It's good for them, good for you. And if you like let go of the person timely, okay? It's all about stopping the negative compounding. Okay, you don't want to waste time, right, in keeping the person like in your company, right, when they're not performing as you want to, right? So actually, I honestly learned this the hard way, but so that's why I'm saying it even more. If firing fast is like very important. Okay, मतलब आप नहीं समझ में आ रहा, आप let go कर दो part ways. Okay, it's good for everybody in the long run. Then next comes yeah, so thought clarity. Okay, so कई बार क्या होता है ना कि people are like they don't have enough thought clarity of what they are doing, right? And sometimes people don't seek it effectively as well, right? So मतलब this actually somewhat links to my ownership wala point earlier, because if you are actually if you want to have ownership of something, right, if you're doing something with ownership, you want to know in and out of everything, right? है ना? अगर कोई इंसान है जो कि in and out नहीं समझ पा रहा है वगैरह, तो मतलब they are probably not the best person at the moment, है ना, to take up such tasks autonomously, right? So you should check for कि जो the person है, the person that you are hiring, right, can they actually get enough thought clarity? Okay, so in a startup, like it's a lot of turbulent stage in the beginning, right? किसी को कुछ पता नहीं होता, चीजें figure out हो रही होती हैं along the way, right? So at that time, if you have somebody who is not able to seek the data points correctly, who is not able to seek the thought clarity correctly, then it becomes a problem because you'll have to spoon feed them a lot with different information, right? Such people are good for big companies because वहाँ पे set processes होते हैं. Startups में थोड़ा दिक्कत आती है for such people. So to check if the person can actually seek thought clarity properly, just ask some vague question in the interview, okay, and see what questions do they ask, you know? So more than judging a person by what answers they give, judge by what questions they ask. Okay, मतलब what I like typically like learned recently and what I have started doing is कई बार जो senior roles के लिए if I hire, right, है ना, I just tell them a scenario, ठीक है, कि company में ये हो रहा है, this is a problem, right, and I just say okay, now let's discuss. ठीक है, ये क्वेश्चन भी नहीं, कुछ भी नहीं, मैंने सिनेरियो समझा दिया है, बता दिया है कि ये दिक्कत आ रही है, अब बात करते हैं कि इसको कैसे सॉल्व कर सकते हैं, ठीक है? Then you see कि what are they asking, right? Are they going to depth of things? Are they not able to do that, right? कि वो अपना सिर्फ बता रहे हैं, आपसे पूछ ही नहीं रहे हैं. So you will gauge a lot of things. So this is one tip which I always like emphasize on. And then next point is like in one of the questions that Aditya shared, so there was one thing कि how do you hire like good people, right? So उसमें क्या है कि so this is also like which I find very useful is, so you have a team members, कुछ initial लोग भी अगर होंगे, so you have a team, right? You ask the people है ना कि like who in your circle, right, who are the smartest 3-4 people है ना that you would want to work with, ठीक है? आप पूछो उनसे, उन्हीं को रीच आउट करो फॉर हायरिंग, है ना? मतलब दैट कैन बी लाइक वन वे जो कि आपको पता है कि मतलब इसमें ये काफी रिलायबल वे है, right? Because this is not like you are interviewing job applicants and all. You have at least one data point which is referral from somebody, right? है ना? तो ये एक चीज काफी यूजफुल होती है कई बार. This works actually when you have to hire like very smart or skilled people. So you can just ask in your network for the top 3-4 smartest or skilled people. So that is one thing. Next thing is like very interesting. So this is one process that we had actually kind of created at Cogno. So which we called one-day assessments. Okay, so what we do is we try to simulate the actual work environment for one day. So what we do, we say to the person कि ठीक है आपका एक पूरा दिन जाने वाला है in the evaluation process, right? And in this process we give multiple tasks, we involve different team members at different time to interact with the person, ठीक है? And we just try to assess a lot of different things. For example, मान लो कोई ऐसा रोल है, ठीक है, जिसमें कि काफी ज्यादा थिंकिंग इन्वॉल्व है, ठीक है? So we give tasks, है ना, जिसमें कि you have to come up with some innovative solution, for example, ठीक है? And also we involve like different team members just to see कि हाँ ठीक है, are they communicating well, right? या कोई ऐसा काम है जिसमें मतलब कोई ऐसा रोल है ना, wherein you have to work on multiple things in a day, right? So we simulate that, we give 3-4 tasks in same day, okay? And like see कि okay, how is the person performing under that conditions, right? So ये चीज होती है. कुछ अगर कोई बहुत ही स्ट्रेसफुल कोई रोल है फॉर एग्जांपल, ठीक है ना, ऑल्दो वी डोंट एनकरेज दैट, बट कभी कभी कुछ रोल्स होते हैं जिसमें कि इट्स लाइक वेरी डेडलाइन बाउंड, राइट? यू हैव टू फिनिश इट एट एंड ऑफ द डे. वी ट्राई टू सिमुलेट दोस थिंग्स जस्ट टू सी कि इफ द पर्सन इज एबल टू हैंडल दैट प्रेशर, बिकॉज स्टार्टअप में प्रेशर होता है, right? मतलब no matter what anybody says, like people talk about work-life balance and all, that is there, okay, but pressure is there of deadlines or like of performance and all, right? So we try to simulate that. And in the past we have seen, so we went for a campus drive in one of the institutes, MBA college, and so there was like their batch topper who had also applied, very good in acads and everything, right? But she gave up in this thing. She said ki I cannot handle like this much pressure, right? Whereas there were other people who are like, it has been 1.5 years now and they're performing really well, and they were able to handle like the pressure and all. So yeah, I mean, that is like just simulate a bit, and that helps a lot because it avoids last minute surprises, honestly. And now I'll talk about culture. Okay, so first thing, many times people feel that culture is about swanky offices and like mental health leaves and like different company perks, right? So actually culture is not that, right? Culture is the values that your entire team believes in and they work accordingly. For example, it might happen that there might be a culture of respecting each other's time and punctuality, right? Hai, so everybody in the company, they know ki haan, we have to be punctual and we have to respect the deadlines. We don't have to keep people waiting in meetings, right? Things like that. So that is culture. Matlab some fundamental trait of everybody in the company, right? There can be a culture of giving like frequent feedbacks, right? For example, there are like many companies जिसमें कि जो feedback cycles होती हैं, right, of 6 months or like whatever is the feedback cycle. Only in those feedback cycles people give feedback, right? That is a process, okay? But you can actually set up a culture of giving on the spot feedback, because on the spot feedback is the most effective feedback, right? Because the person remembers ki what has happened ekdam recently on which the feedback is being given. Okay, so a culture of giving frequent feedbacks, okay, that is a trait which is common to everybody in the company, right? And so yeah, like as I mentioned, some examples over here also. And then there can be a culture of ki theek hai, no matter how many leaves you take, no matter like what are your working hours, theek hai, if you are able to deliver the thing like on the deadline, ठीक है, आप दिन में 2 घंटे काम करो, दैट इज ओके विद अस, ठीक है? दैट इज वन एग्जांपल ऑफ कल्चर, राइट? अनदर एग्जांपल कैन बी कि जो भी है, मतलब लाइक डेडलाइन से फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा, सर्टेन नंबर ऑफ आवर्स यू हैव टू स्पेंड इन अ डे, लाइक व्हाटएवर, डिफरेंट कंपनी टू कंपनी, बट इट इज हाउ पीपल बिहेव in the company, right? So that is a culture. Culture flows down from founders, so founders have to be very wary of their actions, right? Because whatever founders do, right, it actually just multiplies and gets spread in the team, okay, as the team increases, right? So if the founders say are, for example, punctual, so I'll give an example. So I don't like people to wait a lot, right? Unless it is necessary. I mean, I strictly like avoid any kind of waiting when the meeting starts, right? So what I do is I just join the meeting 1 minute early. Now my entire team knows that is the case. Now my team also, everybody joins 1 minute early, right? So it actually flows a lot from the founders. So founders have to be very wary of their actions, right? So that is why कई बार जैसे कंपनीज में होता है कि you must have heard कि there's a lot of politics in the company and all, right? We have scaled to 150 people. There is zero politics at all because Aman and I, we ourselves don't indulge into politics. We are like कि okay, कोई भी कुछ भी बोल रहा है, let's firstly see both the sides, the facts and everything. So like obviously, तो वो culture spread हो जाता है. So it flows from the founders, very important. Third point is making culture document. Okay, so this is very important, especially for the new joinees, right? What your company is, what are the values, how people behave across the company. If there's a document, right, of everything, what do you expect from the people, right? So iska document bana loge, which can be shown to in induction to the new joinees. So that always helps because from the day one, they are very clear of what is expected out of me and how everybody in the company behaves, right? So that can be one thing. And then the next point is, you can provide higher flexibility to your team members if the talent density is high. Okay, so this is very important because like in many companies, you must have heard ki people say ki, I mean, like people have to punch in their attendance in the morning, punch out in the evening and all those things, right? So all these kind of things can be avoided if the talent density in your team is high. What is talent density? Ki basically like for any number like of people, right? Whatever subset you pick, they are like very skilled. I mean, there is no particular number per se to this, but yeah, you can always just think, for example, if there are two teams, okay, you pick say 4 people from here, 4 people from here, and you see ki like which people are more skilled, right? So usme talent density basically zyada hai, right? The more skill set you have per unit number of people. So if you have a high talent density, you can actually give a lot of flexibility to people because people are themselves motivated to do things like their best. Okay. Then the last point is do maintain a culture of frequent feedbacks from manager to reportee and also among peers. Okay, this is very important. As I mentioned in the previous point also, feedback is best given on the spot, right? Then the second best thing is like whenever earliest as possible, right? So because people do remember, right, exactly kya hua. So it is very important to give frequent feedback so that people can iterate, learn fast, right? So agar aap monthly or quarterly doge feedback, then it becomes too late. At times people don't even remember what happened. So frequent feedbacks is quite important. Next is keeping the team on same page. Okay, so this was also one of the questions that I had received. Okay, so one thing is like, especially as a team grows in size, right? So what happens is like not everybody is on the same page in terms of the vision of the company, right? Or the strategy and all those things, right? People know about their department and everything, but they don't know company wide. So it is very important that we conduct periodically, like monthly or quarterly, as per the requirement, like town halls kind of things, wherein the founders and say the senior team leads, right? They talk about the vision, strategy, achievements, the problems that are happening, right? So that everybody knows on a broader level ki haan company ka direction kya hai. And second point is maintain documentations of all the processes. Extremely important, right? और ये आपको ना मतलब day one से even when you are 1-2 people, if you can start documenting processes, that is the best because this documentation of processes has a compounding effect, right? है ना, क्योंकि आप मतलब if say a lot of people are hired and there are not enough processes that are documented, there becomes a lot of chaos. So best way of documentation is the moment you do it yourself or some team members does it themselves, right? And they feel this is working, just document it. ठीक है, आप डाल दो कहीं पे company wiki somewhere, and this helps a lot. So this should be started as earliest as possible. Third is a document on culture and expectations from all team members. I mentioned in the previous slides. So this is also like one thing to keep everybody on the same page. And here document बहुत ही extensive हो सकता है. So especially at Cogno we had, so both Aman and I are like very peculiar about the documents, like are looking good. There should not be any errors, grammatical errors and all. Somehow it irks me out. So usme culture expectation documents mein likha hai clearly there should not be any double spaces between two words. Alignment problems nahi ho. So you can go to a lot matlab extensive details as much as possible, right? And people do appreciate it because from day one they know what is expected out of them. Okay, so wo cheez ho gayi. Fourth point is timely sync up meetings within teams. Very important. Yeah, I mean within teams, like they can be as frequent as they want to meet, like daily sync up or whatever, weekly sync up. That depends, I mean, on team to team and task to task. Then comes quantify and communicate clear metrics as much as possible. Extremely important, because so you can only improve what you can measure. Okay, so this is like very important. So if for anything, right, if you can actually associate it with a metric, okay, so then I mean it becomes like really effective, because people can actually see that is the improvement happening or not, अच्छा जा रहा है, बुरा जा रहा है, right? So just quantify the metrics as much as possible and communicate it clearly. ठीक है, and sometimes even मतलब इसमें so okay, so ये metrics वाले में तो I can take another separate session on that probably, है ना? So you can make leaderboards, do whatever, you can play around a lot with these things, but metrics making is very important. Next is incentivize people for the right things. So this is like a very important psychological point ki people respond to incentives. Okay, so if you incentivize people for the right things, they will be moving in the right direction. Okay, so you can set up metrics and incentives in a manner है ना, जो कि मतलब direction सही align करे with what is required, like as per the strategy of the company, things work out. Last point is reiterate things at appropriate time intervals. Very important. People do forget things at times in like while like day-to-day activities they get so involved, they might forget a lot of things. Reiterate things at appropriate intervals. Over communication is better than under communication anytime. Okay. And yeah, so next I have some Q&As which I already got. So I'll just go through them quickly and then we can like discuss on other questions. So what to see in a person while selecting a co-founder, I already mentioned in the previous slide. In the case of a startup, is it better to employ people from the network rather than job posting? Pros and cons. Okay, so see, both the things work out, है ना? Ultimately, you have to hire the right person. Okay, so आप दोनों चीजें कर सकते हो, है ना? Use. The only thing is that when you kind of employ people from the network, right? One extra data point that you have from a reliable source is the feedback of that person, right? कि in the past, like how have they worked in their previous roles and all. ठीक है, तो वो आपको एक थोड़ा ज़्यादा reliable मतलब reliably मिल जाता है, because you know the person who is referring or you directly know the person, right? Job posting में क्या होता है, आपको background verification check and their feedback check from the previous hiring managers and all करना रहेगा. ये difference आता है, ठीक है, but rest is generally okay. And when you talk about employing people from the network, you have to be very cautious about कि कई बार क्या होता है ना, people feel कि हाँ मतलब like working with people from friends and families is like also मतलब quite easy. तो उसमें you have to be like setting the expectations from upfront, क्योंकि personal life professional life में mixing में कई बार problems आते हैं. So if you set the expectations from day one, then it is fine. है ना, वेग मत रखिए चीजें, है ना, आप पहले से डिस्कस कर लो, है ना, मतलब I'm just mentioning this point because it was mentioned people from the network, so network can mean anything. Next is how and when to start team building activity. What mindset should we keep while doing this activity? Okay, so team building is something, इसमें how and when का कुछ नहीं है. The moment you start hiring, ठीक है, आप कुछ ना कुछ करने लग जाते हो, है ना. So by team building over here I mean है कि team bonding more than that. ठीक है, hiring एक part होता है, hiring तो आप कर ही रहे हो, I'm presuming, है ना, वो तो as and when required you hire people. Team bonding is very important. That starts from day one, the moment even you have a co-founder, okay? Because ultimately, like it's companies made of people, right? People have emotions. They want to like if they are more attached, it's always easier working with friends, right? एक तरह से, because you understand each other more. You are with together in the hard times as well, right? So what mindset we should keep is ki just be human. I mean, just understand like the other person's perspective ki kahin pe unko dikkat ho rahi hai, don't blame them, just try to understand, okay, how can I help you. Founder ka sabse zyada to use statement yahi kai baar hota hai, how can I help you, right? So I mean, you have to actually like see things from that mindset. How can you help the other person, है ना? That is the thing. जैसे मैंने पहले बोला, hire slow. ठीक है, I mean you hire only when your gut says okay you hire the person, but once you have hired that person, make sure what the best you can do for them to achieve their success in career. ठीक है, so if you approach things from that mindset, already अपने आप ही होता है कि आप उनसे ज्यादा बातें करते हो, you talk things apart from work also, a lot of bonding already happens. Then next is, if we want to build a team on a project basis, say 1 or 2 year, is it a good option? Actually, I'll need more details for this question, because it depends. Services based company hai, product based company hai, kya hai, kya nahi, answer depend kar sakte hain isme. So I'll probably take this in the end. I'll like, if the person who asked this is in this call, so I'll just ask for more details and then talk about it. Next is how to select the right talent. Any tips? So I talked a lot in the previous slides for this. What is the important quality to look out for candidate for team building? Again, I talked in the previous one. Attitude पे आप ज़्यादा bet करो, है ना? How can we? How can one connect the team and bring them on the same stage of thinking, perspective, and desire during ongoing conversation on any topic? So on the same page, I talked a lot, right? And desire during ongoing conversation in any topic. मतलब वही चीज है, if people know the bigger picture of where they are going, right? People become already very interested, right? For example, so this is one anecdote I read from somewhere. So मतलब एक कोई नासा में या कहीं पे, so a janitor was asked that what are you like, so वो नहीं sweeper and all, right? So उनसे बस पूछा था कि आप क्या करते हैं, and they said कि I am helping a man land on the moon, right? So वैसे ही चीज होती ना, तो मतलब already a person is interested in even things like sweeping the floor, right? So if they know the bigger picture, they'll become interested, right? Because bigger picture is already very interesting, right? The entire company is working towards the bigger picture. And how to keep the team motivated together and focused. As I mentioned, ये वही है कि motivated के लिए they should know the bigger picture. They should be knowing that they're moving in direction of that, right? Together and focused. I mentioned a lot about incentives and communication and all in the previous slides. So ये वही से आ जाएगा. What are essential team building activities for early stage startups? Early stage startups में, as I mentioned, कि it's basically you can just hang around with people. ज़्यादा लोग अगर नहीं होते हैं, है ना, you can just do some team outings, कहीं पे ट्रैक पे चले गए साथ में, कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. कभी किसी से ऐसे ही मिलने के लिए बुला लिया शाम को, अच्छा ठीक है, you are free, I am free, okay, let's just catch up. So yeah, I mean, it can go very informal. When a company becomes big, there are HR that conducts events, ठीक है, monthly events हो रहे हैं वगैरह, वो सब आता है. But early stage में it can be a lot more informal. How to integrate and manage the work between different departments and personnel, right? So in this, like, you have to document a lot of processes, right? You have to document even things like, for example, if there is a communication or a transfer of information that is happening from the sales team to project delivery team, and there should be a process for that which is documented, which is told to the people of the respective teams. So yeah, as you scale up, like, definitely it's all about processes. Okay. Next is how to maintain work-life balance in a startup, right? So work-life balance may, okay, so this is a very tricky question. I mean, it depends on company to company. So basically, okay, so people do it, approach it in different ways. Some people are like कि ठीक है, रात में कोई किसी को call नहीं करेगा. Okay, that is one way, which we also encourage कि after like 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. like people should not call each other, right? So that is one step towards it. Startup में काम देखिए ज़्यादा होता है ये. Okay, so that is that goes without saying. But some steps, like as I mentioned, right, don't call people at odd hours. This can be there, right? And you can just like have frequent meetups with people just to kind of chill out a bit, right? And I mean, things can be worked out in that way, right? I mean, like कि कैसे काम भी हो जाए, and at the same time people are not stressed out. So that sweet spot depends on again, as I mentioned, the culture of the company, right? What you value more, you know. It also depends on the average age of people in the company. Like for example, Cogno AI में अभी currently the average age might be like 25 or 26. People are already very energetic. A lot of bachelors are there, so they are like already ki, okay, I can work at any time. मतलब young people, they can like wake up at any time or whatever. So तो लोगों को उतना important नहीं होता ये चीज. But as the age increases, these things become important. So then we have to take care of these things very specifically. Okay. Next is how can we get the work done in a team within a short period? Okay, so one standard thing is ki you can actually break the task into smaller chunks and associate deadlines with them. I mean, deadlines work the best when you have to get predictability in when a thing is happening. So this can be one way. Okay, so next, इसमें नहीं है मतलब I mean so the fourth question which was like building a team on a project basis. So if the person who has asked this question, they can provide more details on this, then I'll be able to answer it better.
Mohit sir has asked that question. I guess Mohit is not able to speak today. He has some issues with mic. Can you post it on the chat? Okay. Meanwhile, he post in the chat. We can go for the more question if that's if this is the end of the slides. I guess that.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yes. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
If we have time, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Hi, Harshita. Thank you for, I'm muted. Yeah. So thank you for just walking us through your journey, and it is fantastic. And just a quick question on incentives you mentioned. So how to maintain that balance between incentive, because sometimes incentives within the team can actually be, people can be very competitive and they can start hampering each other work. I'll say not exactly hampering, but indirectly they might hamper work within the team. So how do you maintain that balance within the team?
Okay, so one way is of course like for any incentive, okay. So there are two parts to it. Okay, one is key people hampering each other's work for that. Okay. So and the second is like how do you like make incentives in the first place which are effective, right? So I'll take up this how do you maintain like create incentives first. Okay, so that is to optimize, and what is the counter metric for that. Okay, so I'll give an example. Like for example, there's a sales ka agar hai, okay? If the metric is, for example, say a salesperson has to like book X amount of revenue in a month, for example, right? So there should be a counter metric also saying ki this client should at least be a customer say for 1 year, for example, and just to make sure कि ऐसा नहीं कुछ mis-selling करके बेच दिया है ना, उसके बाद में दिक्कत हो रही है. So you always have to think about counter cases as well, and then make the incentives policy accordingly. That is first thing. Second is how to make sure that the people don't hamper each other's work, right? So this can be done a lot with the processes. Okay. Again, if I take an example of sales, ठीक है? So आप कह सकते हो कि ये वाली deal है ना? ये deal, for example, एक ही sales person को assigned है. Now no other sales person will be involved in this at all. ठीक है? ये deal हुई तो इस बंदे का incentive नहीं हुई तो नहीं है incentive, right? So there is no scope of any other person to hamper this person's work, right? So you'll have to make the processes very smartly in a manner कि इस टाइप के प्रॉब्लम्स ना हो. Because I'll tell you, Vinay, honestly, what happens is कि अगर ये वाले cases नहीं solve हुए हैं, right? I mean, if these cases are not taken into account, so there can be, I mean, work hampering between the teams as well. Marketing team और sales team के बीच में ही मतलब so this actually happened recently. I got to know, है ना? So I mean, this is not the Cogno example. This is some other company example, right? So their marketing team, they had to they marketing team का काम क्या है? To get the leads, right? And then they transfer it to sales, and then sales team marks it as कि if these are qualified leads, right? Sales qualified leads, right? Now अब फिर क्या होता है, वो sales qualified leads mark करते हैं, and then sales team का conversion measure होता है कि from these qualified leads how much percentage are actually becoming the customers, right? Yes. But marketing team का क्या important था कि sales qualified leads कितनी आ रही हैं. Yes. तो sales team what it was doing is they were not marking the leads as sales qualified leads till the end, है ना, just to make sure that their conversion numbers are not taking a hit, right? क्योंकि अगर एकदम last stage पे अगर आप उसको mark करोगे तो आपको पता है ये कि customer बन ही रहा है, right? So your conversion numbers will anyway be higher, but that is taking a toll on the marketing team's metrics, right? So मतलब इस type के भी cases आ सकते हैं across the team. So it's just a processes that can actually cure such things or prevent such things.
Yeah, thank you for the answer. Interesting analogy. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions?
Yeah. Hello, Aditya sir. This is Shardul. Yeah. Hello, Harshita ma'am. First of all, thank you. It was the most genuine perspective from founder's perspective that I got. And I have I want to have your thoughts on like long-term employee retention, like long-term team member retention. Like we are just a big grantee and we are just a starting startup. Okay, we don't know where we will go. Visions are too broad, but we want to create a team which will retain long term. And I also want your perspective of which is recently the hot topic, that is moonlighting. So what are your thoughts on it?
Okay, so Shardul, I'll tell ki ye jo like you talked about long-term employee retention, right? This is a very important topic, and so the mindset of employees, it has been changing drastically since our parents and grandparents ka generation. Okay, so so I'll give you an example. Jise abhi kya hai, there are so many companies, there's so many opportunities in the market for anybody who is skilled, right? In the previous times, like if we go back 30-40 years or so, itne opportunities hi nahi the. So people used to join a company, they used to stay in that company for their entire lives. That used to happen a lot. It was very common. Abhi to it is very rare, right? So at that time, like okay, so if we talk about 2 generations previous, okay, at that time, people were, because there were not enough opportunities to join there, they went there. Okay, they used to have toxic bosses, whatever, but still they did not leave that company, right? Because there were not enough opportunities, right? फिर उनके बाद की generation आई, ठीक है? Now this generation was actually they were sticking to different companies, है ना, basis on a lot. A bigger factor was also compensation, right? Because and also the environment of the company, right? So this was a lot of important factors. And I'm not talking about lifestyle. I'm talking about just the environment of the company, right? So just like, for example, TCS brought this PF का concept and all. ये उस time की मैं बात कर रही हूँ, है ना? अभी तो ये सब चीजें बहुत ही mainstream हो गई हैं, but at that time these were not there. So जो एक जो company का जो atmosphere होता था, right? उस पे काफी important होता था, है ना? And compensation was also an important factor. Now with the current phase, right, the thing is ki these people, because there are so many companies who actually have a lot of cash, right? VC funding aa gayi hai. Pehle ye matlab VC funding was not common earlier, right? है ना? Abhi VC funding इतनी सारी है, there's a lot of cash with the companies, right? They can pay like absurd amount of money, right? So लोगों के पास में who are skilled, they don't have a dearth of high paying opportunities. What they're looking now more for is how much personal connect they have with people in the company, how much bonded they are. Okay, that is very important, right? They have a personal connect with the founders, ठीक है, with their manager, right? कितना ये लोग strongly bounded है, कैसा इनका lifestyle है, ठीक है ना? When I say lifestyle, it is like about नहीं flexible working hours हैं कि नहीं है ना? क्योंकि जैसे पुराने टाइम में ये होता था, you have to punch in punch out every time. Nowadays people find it like very constrictive, right? People are like कि ये क्या हो रहा है, मतलब आप क्यों punch in punch out करा रहे हो? Don't you have trust, right? So trust is an important factor. A feeling of belonging, this है कि या we are a cult, ठीक है ना, एक तरह से. तो वो अभी लोग ज्यादा देख रहे हैं, ठीक है? So it is very important that if people feel कि हाँ they are actually cared for, right? So ये एक बहुत ही ड्राइविंग फैक्टर है, because I'll tell you, Shardul, like we had been before acquisition, we had been like bootstrapped, right? So since we had been sign incubated, है ना, एक जो certain like as a process of incubation जो funding रहती है वो रहती है, but after that we did not raise funding, right? There were few mentors and advisors, है ना, but मतलब ऐसे proper funding नहीं raise करती, but still our retention of employees, है ना, it has been like really nice, है ना. And now after acquisition, we are 3 entities merged now, right? Even now Cogno AI का attrition rate सबसे कम है, because people feel like so connected. People feel कि एक नहीं cult type का है, मतलब हम ऐसे हैं, है ना, वो वाली चीज. तो वो अब ज्यादा important होता है. अभी लोगों का mindset ऐसा है काफी हद तक, which is quite different from the previous generations.
Yeah, thank you for the response, ma'am. It was great to hear you once again.
Thank you.
Harshita, adding to your point, I think having an employee too long also is counter to the to the company. In the sense, what I'm trying to say is, I've seen founders saying, "Arey, my key employee is going away." So one is, like you said, system processes hona chahiye. It should not be people dependent. Finally, it has to be process dependent, right? And maybe some key people, because today, as you said, opportunities are huge. So as a company, as a culture, also allowing people to go, which allows you to attract better talent and better learnings from outside, which can be again, incorporated in your company. So it's that open-mindedness is important, because generally the tendency is, I hired you as a trainee, I brought you this far. Now it's like you have to continue, or there is a lot of heartburn when that person leaves. But actually letting go of that person in a rightful manner, assuming he or she's got a better whatever, ambition, personal, or moving to another sector, allowing that person to go and and getting somebody equally good or better from a different industry will actually enrich your own company. I mean, this is something which I've seen works very well. So the banda jo bahar ja raha hai goes with a good mind, because he's an ambassador, right? And that's how the referrals and that whole image changes.
Yes, absolutely, ma'am. I think we need to have that right balance. Ki haan, matlab, it's actually, startups is all about balance. Like at every stage, you have to balance things in a certain manner.
There's always a heart and brain dilemma.
Always.
Hello. Yeah. Any other question? I guess Mohit sir has mentioned that he has got the answer from the session. So regarding the fourth question you are asking, so he got the answer. If you have any other question from other members.
Wonderful session, Harshita. It's been a pleasure listening to you.
Thank
It's a
you.
pleasure. It's a pleasure, I must say. I'm so glad you made it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Harshita. Thank you so much. Aman have taken a couple of sessions earlier on the journey of the Cogno. So he had mentioned very different ways to how the Cogno started, how he and you have reached out to the customers, and how you have to struggle to get the customers and all those things. So this time we thought it would be great to have a team building activity, how Cogno have developed their own team. So thank you so much. It's been a wonderful time for this session, and thanks for taking out time from your schedule and interacting with us, interacting with